Hey guys, Dantix back with the Ultimate Veilguard Companion Guide. I'll be going through each companion, what they bring to the table, and specifically who you should be choosing to complement your build. In Dragon Age the Veilguard, you should think of your companions as an extension of you in combat. Without intervention, they'll attack enemies and fire off any abilities you've upgraded to happen passively. Each have different attack patterns beyond being simply ranged or melee. However, they bring with them abilities that can provide different effects to aid you, from heals and buffs to damage to setting up or detonating combos. Combo detonations slow down time briefly, then explode in a larger radius. In most situations, you won't be able to both set up and detonate combos yourself, so having a complementary companion is key. However, each brings with them more specific build synergies. A necrotic build, for example, would love Lucanis' ability to grant necrotic weapons on heal. Also, after completing their specific missions, like in every Bioware game, they'll get a buff. In Veilguard though, they'll get one set of 2 different passives and legendary gear pieces. You'll need to make a choice. These drastically improve the companion that could match perfectly with your build, or be a complete dud. So in this video, we'll go through your companion's abilities, their specializations, what classes they work with, synergies, and so on. You can follow the timestamps below. First, a reminder that I'm celebrating being close to 250k subscribers by giving away a ton of prizes.
I'm Commander Shepard, and Dantix is my favorite channel on the Citadel.
You're not getting the discount.
What?
Let's start with Bellara. She's a mage that uses a magical Veil Ranger bow. She can apply the weakened effect in multiple ways to enemies and detonate the sundered effect. This means she has natural synergy with warriors, since they can detonate her weakened effect and apply sundered for her to detonate, though rogues can benefit solely from her ability to detonate the sundered effect. Mages have no direct synergy in that department. Bellara also has a powerful heal that you can skill up to automatically cast when your health gets low with the contingency passive. She can slow time like other mages, which is always valuable if you want to line up weak point shots from ranged attacks or capitalize on enemies being staggered. Galvanized Tear pulls enemies into its center, so if you have a big detonation planned or big AoE abilities like Meteor, she works well for you. She focuses mainly on electric damage, so if your own build uses shocked effects or this damage type, she synergizes well with you in multiple ways through the passives in her skills. An example is Displacement on Galvanized Tear, which makes it do more damage the more shock stacks you have on the target. When you achieve her Hero of the Veilguard status by completing her quest, you'll have 2 choices, which give her different passives and armor pieces. The first specialization gives her the passive Lingering Strike. Bellara's Replenish ability now applies Weakened in a 6-meter radius around you. Whenever Bellara applies Weakened, it also deals 200 electric damage and renders the target shocked. And it also gives her the armor, Archivist Mail. Detonating Sundered detonates another nearby Sundered enemy. Enemies near the second detonation become vulnerable to electric damage. This choice really leans into the combo detonation path. Great if you plan on making a warrior that can both detonate weakened enemies and apply Sundered, as Bellara will improve its damage, though where it really shines is in an electric damage focused build. Either a Veil Ranger Rogue or a Spellblade Mage, though you can customize builds to deal electric damage through gear. If you do this, you'll need a companion with you that either applies Sundered or detonates Weakened, depending on what your class can't cover. The second Hero of the Veilguard specialization gives her the Chain Lightning passive. Bellara's weapon attacks Chain Lightning against shocked enemies, dealing 100 electric damage. The effect of Shocked is 10% stronger, and it also gives her the item Reborn Feathers. Detonations apply shock to all affected enemies. Detonations deal an additional 200 electric damage. Now this is very obviously for an affliction build. You can mess around with what afflictions apply based on your items, though naturally this synergizes well with a shock build, so the same recommendations of specializations with this Hero of the Veilguard choice. Also keep in mind there are many ways to turn your damage to electric with particular gear pieces. With her Hero of the Veilguard specializations, you'd think she'd only be useful for electric builds, however with her auto heal, Galvanized Tear, and Time Slow, she can be a powerful supporting character that just so happens to put out damage. A damage type that's rare in the game, second only to cold damage, so she might be who you bring with you if you want to take on electric vulnerable enemies or need someone who complements your team with a different damage type. Davrin is up next, and unlike Bellara, is melee. This is good for you as it's more distracting to your enemy having a companion up in their face. He also has with him his trusty baby Griffin, a San that swoops down to attack with 2 of his abilities. He can apply Overwhelm and detonate Weakened. There's no perfect synergy with him, and he doesn't line up with another warrior. Mages can apply Weaken for him, and rogues can detonate Overwhelmed. Davrin also has a San Strike, which is good against armor, can knock down enemies and deal high stagger. All his damaging abilities in fact apply high stagger. He has a Taunt which gets enemies' attention on him, and since companions can't die, this means a breather for you. With the Overprotective passive, you can make this Taunt auto-trigger at low health, giving you a degree of safety. He also makes you immune to damage for a duration, providing an additional degree of safety, especially on higher difficulties. All his damaging abilities do fire damage. We'll get a better idea of his endgame though if we look at his Hero of the Veilguard passives and armor. The first specialization gives the Battle Master passive. Asan abilities deal 25% more damage. When used, Asan abilities grant precision, and the armor Wildwood Benefactor, detonating staggered enemies deals stagger to all enemies. Stagger from detonating is increased by 10% for each enemy hit. So naturally, Davrin leans into helping a stagger-focused build. Naturally, this means you'll need to be a warrior or rogue to really capitalize on this, as they do it better than mages. Rogues, specifically as duelists, will have an easy time with Davrin, as he can set up the Overwhelm effect, which increases the stagger enemies take, and then before it expires, a duelist can detonate the effect, staggering everyone in the area. Just for those who don't know, when the stagger bar fills, a staggered opponent is open to a finisher. So other warriors can also capitalize on this effect, but you'd need another companion in the party that can help Davrin detonate. The next Hero of the Veilguard specialization gives Davrin the passive Defender. Asan abilities have a 25% shorter cooldown duration. When used, Asan abilities grant Deflect, and the armor Grey Benefactor. Detonation damage is now dealt as fire damage, deal plus 25% more fire damage for each stack of burning on the target. Deflect is perfect for a squishy character, and the bonus to fire damage works well on a build that focuses around fire and burning effects. Mages, I'm looking at you. The fire side of the mage tree leans towards Spellblade or Deathcaller, and Invoker can do this as well. The Spellblade specifically has a way to apply both shocked and burning from both fire and electric abilities. The Champion Warrior specialization can focus on fire damage as well, so why not have 3 warriors on your team? You, Davrin, and Taash for the ultimate fire focus. There are also gear pieces to give you fire damage and burning effects, so Davrin works no matter what class you are. If you're lacking a fire damage option against those pesky Darkspawn, he's great. If you want him to assist a stagger-focused build, he excels. If you want him to improve your Burning Affliction build, he has your back. But if you just want to see a griffin swooping down on your enemies, he's the man to bring with you. Next up is Emmrich, a gentleman necromancer of sorts. Like Bellara, he applies Weakened and detonates Sundered. This means he has a natural synergy with warriors, since they can detonate his Weakened effect and apply Sundered for him to detonate. Though rogues can benefit solely from his ability to detonate the Sundered effect, and mages have no direct synergy in this department. Also, like Bellara, he can heal and slow time. That's where the likeness ends though. His heal doesn't cast automatically, instead it becomes stronger at low health and can apply invulnerability with the Vigor Mortis ability. His time slow also gives extra stacks of afflictions for your affliction build with Timeless Suffering, which you'll see works well with one particular pathway. He focuses around using necrotic damage and applying necrosis, though he has a unique status effect called Quietus that does damage over time. His ability, Final Rites, detonates the Sundered effect, but also, with the passive, Staggering Power, deals increased stagger. His ability, Entangling Spirits, also naturally deals high stagger as well as applying weakness, so both rogues and warriors may want him for a stagger build as well, since they synergize well with a mage. Though we don't have Emmrich's full picture unless we look at his Hero of the Veilguard passives and armor. The first specialization gives the passive, Life's Embrace. Your low health threshold is now increased by 10%. The party deals 50% more damage while you have low health, and comes with the armor, Graven Vestments. Detonations deal plus 50% damage versus health when you are at low health. Detonations grant you invulnerable while you're at low health. This naturally suits a high risk, high reward build. There are unique items out there that reduce your health as you cast abilities to guarantee crits, so this could work well with that. The Warrior's Reaper specialization like being on the knife's edge of health, and some rogue and mage builds might be there naturally. If so, 50% bonus damage to health for your whole party is insane. If you can keep the detonations flowing, you'll be invulnerable and less likely to die. The next hero of the Veilguard specialization gives the passive Death's Caress. All of Emmrich's abilities apply necrosis when dealing damage. The party's affliction damage is increased by 25%, and the armor Lich's Vestige. Detonating a sundered enemy applies Quietus. If the detonated enemy already has necrosis or Quietus, deal plus 200 necrotic damage. Now this is very clearly aimed at a necrosis affliction build, which is easy to achieve as the Duelist Rogue specialization, the Deathcaller Mage specialization, and the Reaper Warrior specialization. The Deathcaller Mage also has an ability Spirit Bomb, which applies the sundered effect for Emmrich to detonate. There are also items that turn your damage necrotic, though you can just use Emmrich to support, making him one of the most synergistic companions in the game across all classes. Harding is, in my opinion, one of the most unique companions in the game in terms of what she offers. She starts out as a basic scout but evolves into more. She applies the Sundered effect and detonates the Overwhelmed effect, meaning mages and rogues will benefit from her applying Sundered, and warriors and mages will benefit from her detonating the Overwhelmed effect, meaning yes, mages do get the full benefit from her, but all classes can combo with her. She's the only companion that focuses on physical damage, meaning you won't have to worry about resistances, but you also won't get the benefit of weaknesses. This means she's the perfect number 2 choice in a lot of cases. This is because she has a heal, which can either buff your damage or improve your survivability, depending on what you need. She can also enhance your damage while reducing your cooldowns and giving you a class resource back. In a way, she can suit any class and any build. All her attacks apply high stagger, though Seismic Shot applies very high stagger as well as disrupting enemies, making her great for a stagger build as well. What further improves this is her ability Heavy Draw, which detonates the Overwhelmed effect. Normally that means no more bonus stagger from the effect. However, with the passive Overpower, it no longer removes the Overwhelm effect when it detonates, and with Fault Line, it improves the Overwhelmed effectiveness. But to get the full picture of Harding, let's look at her Hero of the Veilguard specialization passives and armor. The first specialization gives the passive The Stone's Vengeance. Harding's weapon attacks are occasionally replaced with Titan Stones. Titan Stones deal 20% increased damage and now apply bleeding. And the armor Titan's Vengeance, detonations also apply bleeding. Detonations deal 25% physical damage versus enemies that are already bleeding. Naturally, this leans into a build focus around the Bleeding Affliction, a status applied by rogues and warriors, though there are items to further improve this effect. With this Hero of the Veilguard choice, Harding will be spreading bleed around very easily. However, her next specialization will be a favorite of those who want her as a powerful number 2 companion. It gives the passive Heart of the Titan. Soothing Potion's cooldown duration is reduced by -15%. Harding's detonation damage is increased by 25%. You and your other companion gain bonus 20% damage and 15% cooldown reduction. And then it comes with the armor Inquisition Spotter. All detonations are more likely to disrupt affected enemies. This chance for disruption applies to all enemies near detonation. Now this goes without saying, you getting 20% bonus damage and a 15% cooldown reduction is absolutely bonkers, let alone your number 1 companion getting it as well. Harding, with this Hero of the Veilguard specialization, suits absolutely every single build in the game. I can't think of anyone that wouldn't benefit from it. Even defensive builds would love the cooldown reduction and her reduction on Soothing Potion. So to reiterate, Harding is a great choice if you just don't know who to pick or really appreciate her power, reach, and flexibility. Perfect for Garrus. Lucanis is up next and is the only melee rogue in the party. Lucanis dances around the battlefield using demonic powers. Like Davrin, being up in enemies' faces is a benefit as it distracts enemies. Lucanis applies the Sundered effect and detonates the Overwhelmed effect. Similar to Harding, meaning mages and rogues will benefit from him applying Sundered, and warriors and mages will benefit from him detonating the Overwhelmed effect. Meaning yes, mages do get the full benefit from him, but all classes can combo with him. Story events can give him the Hardened trait, and by doing so, completely remove his ability to heal. It also locks him out of one of his Hero of the Veilguard specializations. Hardened does, however, buff his damage output, so I'd recommend this status on him rather than Neve. He can heal with Soothing Potion, but with the Antivan Coffee passive, it grants him the Necrotic Weapon effect as well, meaning those with a necrotic build will love him and in turn would probably want the Hardened passive on Neve instead. All his abilities deal necrotic damage, and some can be upgraded to apply Necrosis and some with Bleed, meaning necrotic builds from Reaper, Deathcaller and Duelist will love him, and Affliction builds may appreciate him too, especially the rarer Bleed builds. With the Eviscerate ability and its passive Death Tap, you permanently reduce the target's necrotic resistance, and with the Debilitate ability and its passive Spiteful Melodies, you increase the Affliction stacks on enemies. You can see where I'm going with this. He can buff your damage output as well, and with impeccable timing, this can automatically trigger in combat, drastically increasing your damage output without needing to waste his ability cooldowns. We don't get the full picture though until we look at his Hero of the Veilguard specialization passives and armor. The first specialization gives the Demon of Rebellion passive. Your resistance is increased by 10%, the party's barrier damage is increased by 25%, and it also gives the armor Crow's Poise. Detonating an overwhelmed enemy detonates another nearby overwhelmed enemy. Enemies near the second detonation become vulnerable to necrotic damage. This is there for both mages and warriors that apply the overwhelmed effect and appreciate necrotic damage, so Reapers and Deathcallers. Reapers especially would like the barrier damage increase as they struggle with them. This option is lost to you if you get Lucanis hardened. The next specialization has the passive Demon of Defiance. Lucanis' critical damage is increased by 50% and his detonation damage increases by 50%. Lucanis' abilities now deal 25% more damage to enemies suffering an affliction. And it comes with the armor Crow's Tenacity. Detonations versus knockdown enemies also deal stagger to all enemies. Stagger from detonations is increased by 50% for each enemy hit. This is a hard one to directly point to. It suits both a stagger build and an affliction build, so both Duelists and Slayers, since they can do necrosis and bleeds respectively and deal high stagger damage. I feel like Lucanis' Hero of the Veilguard specializations are slightly weaker than the rest simply because he feels slightly overtuned with his other abilities. His supporting abilities, like the ability to buff your damage passively, is really powerful. He won't be for every build like Harding, but if you're looking for a necrosis or bleed support, someone to support your mage combos, or simply someone to enhance your damage and heal you, Lucanis may be your main demon. Neve is up next, and she's your basic Ice Mage Pirate. Like the other mages, Bellara and Emmrich, she applies Weakened and detonates Sundered. This means she has a natural synergy with warriors, since they can detonate her Weakened effect and apply Sundered for her to detonate. Though rogues can benefit solely from her ability to detonate the Sundered effect, mages have no direct synergy in this department. Like Lucanis, story events can give her the Hardened trait, and by getting this, completely remove her ability to heal, but she gets the benefit of a buff on her damaging abilities. This also removes one of her Hero of the Veilguard specializations. Neve has a heal that can also apply resistance. She can slow time as well, just like Bellara and Emmrich. Her main draw though is all her abilities deal cold damage, apply the chill effect, and can freeze targets, making her excellent at crowd control. Most of the time you'll want to be casting her abilities instead of her heal, as stopping enemies or slowing them down is another form of damage mitigation. This means making her hardened isn't too bad. Glacial Pace applies Weakened and can be, with the passive Cold Front, be upgraded to cast automatically, meaning she will passively fire a version of it off that has a separate cooldown, spreading weakness around easily. Her Blizzard summons a large storm for AoE damage and freezing. It's a great crowd control ability, as the passive Flash Freeze freezes targets on the first hit. So it seems with her ability she combos well with other cold builds, which sits within the Evoker Mage specialization. However, because of the nature of her abilities, she's a powerful control companion which suits any build. To get the full picture though, let's take a look at her Hero of the Veilguard passives and armor. The first specialization has the passive Winter's Wrath. Neve's critical damage increases by 50%. Neve's damaging abilities deal bonus 25% damage versus low health. Cooldown and duration reduced by 20%, and it comes with the armor Threader's Plates. Enemies remain sundered when detonated. Sundered effectiveness increases by 20%. This leans into casting her control abilities more, as well as buffing anyone that applies the Sundered effect. like rogues and warrior builds, though the mage specialization Death Caller can apply Sundered with their ability Spirit Bomb. I think you'll see this specialization more than the next, as the next is locked to you if Neve gets the hardened trait from story events. It gives the passive Cold Justice, which increases maximum chilled stacks across the board by 1, and Neve's chilled effectiveness increases by 2%. Her frozen duration is doubled though. This comes with the gear Investigator's Robes, which makes detonations permanently reduce cold resistance and apply frozen if the target's cold resistance drops below 0%. So the Evoker specialization is the only one really benefiting from these, though gear can give any class a cold focus. So Neve, like Harding, makes a good number 2, but in different ways. She doesn't provide a lot of direct build synergy, but works for almost every build since she has great crowd control. Finally, we have Taash, who's a dual-wielding, fire-breathing warrior. Like Davrin, Taash is melee. This is good for you as it's more distracting to your enemy to have a companion up in their face. Taash can apply Overwhelm and detonate Weakened. There's no perfect synergy and it doesn't line up with another warrior. Mages can apply Weaken for Taash, and rogues can detonate Overwhelmed. Like Davrin, Taash can taunt enemies and provide temporary invulnerability to you. However, Taash's taunt can't automatically activate. Instead, it increases the affliction stacks on its targets with the Insult to Injury passive. All of Taash's damaging abilities deal fire damage, and most apply the burning effect. You can see where I'm going with this. With the Fire Breath ability and the passive Overheat, you reduce your target's fire resistances. The ability Spitfire applies Overwhelmed, deals high stagger, and can also be upgraded to fire automatically with the passive Spreading Weakness, meaning that yes, Taash can be used for a stagger build as well. Dragonfire Strike can be upgraded to provide a lot of burning stacks or bleeding, depending on which way you want to go, so Taash works well with the Warrior Champion or Slayer specialization or all mages. Keep in mind there are plenty of items that can change your build to a burning or fire damage focus or even a bleed build. To get the full picture, let's take a look at Taash's Hero of the Veilguard passives and armor. The first specialization gives the passive Ravini Flare. Taash's critical damage increases by 50%, with damage versus high health increased by 25%. Taash's Burning now deals 50% more damage on initial hit, reducing by 10% on each subsequent hit. And it comes with the armor, Ravain's Legacy. Detonations apply burning to all affected enemies. Detonations deal an additional 150% fire damage if the target is already burning. Naturally, this suits a build that can both detonate targets, loves fire damage, and loves burning afflictions, or simply someone who needs fire damage on their side to take down ice dragons and dark spawn. The next specialization has the passive Canari's Focus. Taash's weapon damage increases by 50%, with a 20% reduction in cooldown duration. Taash's burning duration increases by 2 seconds, and it comes with the armor, the Khun's Honor. Detonating a weakened enemy detonates another nearby weakened enemy. Second detonation now applies to all other nearby weakened enemies, not just one. This makes Taash hit a lot harder in combat, as well as comboing well with classes that spread weakness around. Both rogues and mages can do this, so Death Callers with Corrupted Ground or Invokers with Entropic Sphere, they're both large AoE weakness appliers. Once again, the champion works well here as they can use Blight's Bane as a large weakness detonator, which also gets the effects of the bonus detonation. All the warrior specialization final abilities detonate weakness in an AoE, but the champion also focuses on fire damage. So Taash is a highly fire-focused companion that deals a lot of individual damage and gets up in enemies' faces, which might be just what you want for your build, as you may not require someone highly synergistic, and there are a lot of gear pieces that focus on buffing your companion's damage, so Taash, in that case, might be someone you want with you. She also might be great if you want something consistent or a different damage type on your team. So to summarize, generally speaking, use the companion you want to use. You'll be able to get through the game without any direct synergies. However, look for combo detonations as a first stop, and then what else the companion can bring in terms of your build. See them as an extension of you, providing more abilities for you to use. What will really bring your build together? All your 9 specializations have at least one companion that works with them, and every build can be made to work with a combination of companions and gear. There are also gear pieces you can find that focus on buffing companions' damage output, so if you want to function as a sort of pet commander, you can. So that's everything. What companion has stood out most to you? Which two will you be running for your build? Let me know below. Obviously, I haven't mentioned their personality for spoiler reasons, but if you have any questions about who to run for your build, ask below and I'll do my best to reply. For everything Veilguard and RPG, you're in the right place. Ciao friends.